says that, they don't understand. Good evening, everybody. What a pleasure for all of us to join before the Lord on this Shabbat evening. Shabbat Shalom, all of you. Welcome to the ones that have come all the way to join us physically. Welcome to everybody listening to this live stream. We pray that it will go very successfully. We also pray that God would show you what it is you need to learn from tonight's class. Thank you again for everybody. Specific thank you to Sweet for setting up all the equipment. You're a real blessing on that. Thank you. Over to you, Paul.
Well, it's customary to say a particular prayer when you do something new. And those of you who know it, please say it with me. It's called the Shehianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Shehianu v'kimanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who's granted us life and sustained us and enabled us to reach this occasion. Well, it is indeed a wonderful occasion to be meeting back after such a long time. It feels like an eternity, isn't it? As our custom is, we're going to ask Zara to light the lights.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Anu madlakim nerot shel Shabbat. B'shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Sal Shalom. Korah Olam. Amen. Blessing for the lighting of the candles. Woman, everybody, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe. We light these Shabbat lights in the name of Yeshua, the Messiah, Prince of Peace, light of the world. Amen. Heavenly Father, bless us with your presence, enlighten our eyes with your light, with your truth, just as we light these Shabbat candles for you, and so make a spirit of trust, love, well in our homes and in community. We praise you for the gift of your Son, Yeshua. He has come to bless the whole world, to be a light to the nations. Amen.
That's all right. I bet we'll say that together. No.
This is the announcements.
As Paul has asked me, we're going to just run through a few changes to our meetings. Thank you for everybody that is joining us on a Wednesday evening for our prayer meetings. We will continue to run these prayer meetings at 7:30 on Zoom. We'll spend approximately 10 minutes saying hello to one another. And then we'll pray on a specific verse that one of us will forward to you via email or via WhatsApp. Please join us. We're between 15 and 20 people every Wednesday evening, and it has worked very successfully, and has allowed people like Valentine and Connie in Queensland to join us as well. And Sarah Jane Kaiser and her parents as well. So please join us. You'd be extremely welcome. Then we will also continue as we have done during this COVID exercise to stream, but it will be taped next Friday's service or Drash. So this will continue. There will again be at 8:30 a Q&A that allows everybody that has listened to it, that would like to ask Paul some questions, to do that. We keep that short, 20 minutes, maybe maximum half an hour. So what the COVID thing has done is made a lot more work for Honourable Paul, but it's also given us the opportunity to listen to the quality of his teaching. So thank you, everybody. Please consider joining us, first of all, for the prayer on a Wednesday, and then for the Q&A after Friday night's YouTube broadcast. Thank you.
We're going to say the blessing over the children. Now, we're not going to call the children up here, so please do stay seated, everybody. But we're going to say the blessing over the children, and please do say it with us. And think of your children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, all of them. So say it with us. May the Lord make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. May the Lord make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to ask the worship team at this point to lead us in a couple of songs. As we're instructed by government, make merry in your heart or sing songs in your heart, but we've been asked to keep it down in terms of volume because it means less spittle, okay? Worship team. Announcement. Sorry, just the offering announcement. Do you want me to take that? I'm going to announce it now since it's on the screen.
Yeah.
On the screen, you'll see that we do take an offering. We're not going to take an offering at this point. We're going to take it later. There'll be a box downstairs if you want to donate. And those of you watching online, if you want to donate to us online, go to bcsydney.com and you can click on the donate button, and that would be much appreciated. And so we first and foremost cover your prayers, but any donation is obviously well appreciated. Well, having said that, last year we spoke obviously on the parashah Korah, and I'm sure all of you will remember it. And so I'm not going to repeat those notes, but I do want to just recall it for a little bit because it is helpful in the setup and what is happening in chapter 18. So if you have a Bible, do turn with me in the book of Numbers. And I'm going to first quickly look at chapter 16 and 17. And then I'm going to look at chapter 18 with a bit more detail because I think it'll be helpful. In chapter 16, we see that Korah, the son of Korah, the son of Levi, with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliab, and On, who's only mentioned once here in the whole segment, who are sons of Reuben, they took action. And so they went to Moses and said, Moses, you've appointed your brother. Who do you think you are? Nepotism. We don't want that. We are somebody. The Reubenites are obviously from the tribe of Reuben, the firstborn son of Jacob. And they thought they were somebody. Now, it's true that in the older part of this story, they were the priestly family because every family had its own priest, and whoever was the firstborn became the head of that family. And therefore, these sons he had claimed to be priests. We have Korah, or Korah in Hebrew. He is saying, hey, I'm even more so because I'm from the priestly line that is now newly appointed, and I don't want to be a slapper. Now, if you know what a slapper is, right? Somebody who's just carrying things around. Because in Numbers chapter 4, that's what they were told to do. You are in charge of the tabernacle items, and so all you have to do is pick them up from one place to the other. And when God stops, you just set it up, and when he moves, then you move this stuff out. And it is these groups that now come together and say, we're not happy. You've appointed your brother. Who do you think you are? And the argument that they bring is in verse 3, saying, hang on, it's not just Moses and Aaron, but the whole congregation of the Lord is holy. We are all somebody. Moses is rather shocked at this, and he falls on his face and says, hang on, I didn't mean it like that, but if you want, we can test this out before the Lord. Let's all grab a censer, fill it with coal, and put some incense on it. And see whom the Lord chooses. Whoever will choose, God will allow him to live. But if not, it'll be terrible. And so they put the fire on the incense, and they go out. And at that point, they grumble again in verse 11. You see, as a nation, we are a nation of grumblers, a nation of people who say, I wish it was me. And we make it loudly known. And this happens consistently 10 times throughout the Exodus period, from the time they left to the time they enter into the promised land. At that point, Moses says, hey, you wanted leaders, now get your leaders to come over here. Then they say, well, you didn't even bring us into the promised land. Moses, what good are you? And Moses became very angry and said, listen, I didn't even take a single thing from you. It's at this point that God actually lets the plague fall. And at this point, lots of people are dying all around them. And he warns them saying, hey, get back from these tents because God is going to strike them. And the ground swallows them up. It's a terrible event. Look at verse 41. But on the next day, we didn't learn from the event. We didn't stop. We didn't say, what happened? Moses was right. We were wrong. We got to stop this. This is foolishness. But not so. What is it that we did? We complained. We grumbled against Moses and Aaron, saying, you are the one who caused the death of the Lord's people. It's not God who did it. You did it. This is my people. It's terrible. How can we do this? And then Moses says, or the Lord speaks again to Moses, saying, get away from them again, that I may consume them instantly. And the wrath then goes out, and 14,700 people died. And Aaron then stops the plague with his censer. It's a terrible chapter. And then we come to chapter 17, where God once again has to say, no, I did appoint Aaron. And he does that by the stick or the staff, the rod. And each of the tribes have to bring a rod, and whichever rod would blossom. And the rod of Levi then blossoms. And on the very next day, verse 8, I want you to perceive that this is day after day after day. This is in a very quick succession. I know the whole Exodus movement took 40 years, but this is in quick succession, day after day. We then see that the rod for the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth bud and produced blossoms and bore ripe almonds, something that could not have happened. And he's clearly indicating, this is the man that I've chosen. Verse 13, everyone who comes near to the tabernacle of the Lord must die. Are we to perish completely? This is the complaint from the people again. And again, they are murmuring and complaining. We're all dying. Woe is me. Rather than listen to what God has said to Moses. Now, he's spoken to Moses a number of times for the people, and the people have seen what he did in Egypt and what he's seen on the way to this place. And then we come to chapter 18, and we see something unique, and I want you to pick that up. Verse 1. So the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons. He's not speaking to Moses. He's not speaking to Moses and Aaron as almost an afterthought. This is the first time he is speaking to Aaron, affirming once again who he is as the new high priest. And what does he say? He's telling him there are circles. There is you, your sons, your father's household. And then in verse 2, and your brothers, the tribe of Levi. Why is there such an emphasis here? And I want you to pick that up. Because Israel as a nation, what did they do? We murmured, we grumbled against the Lord. It's so simple. And the guilt of them would be borne by somebody. And that's the Levites, who were the teachers now of the nation. Because while Israel murmured in the desert, they continued to murmur until we're still murmuring, aren't we? That's the reality, that's who we are. And I'm sure you'll be welcome to murmur with us and grumble and complain. We do it well, we've been practicing for a long time, but you can join us. The Levites are to teach the nation, but the nation as a whole was called by God to be a priestly nation. And therefore they would eventually teach the nations, but the Levites would teach them. They would be the ones who would teach their brothers. And they would be under the authority of Kohath, who are the ones who were slapping all of this tabernacle stuff. And they would be under the authority of Aaron's sons. And they would be under Aaron. And everybody wants power and authority. And that's what Dathan and Korah and all of those sought. But let's read this verse. So the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons and your father's household with you shall bear the guilt in connection with the sanctuary. And you and your sons with you shall bear the guilt in connection with your priesthood. That should stab us to the heart. God is saying with great authority comes great responsibility. No, it becomes bearing the guilt of the nation. That's what God called them to do. They were told that they would be responsible for the nation's actions. Aaron first. Why? Because he is the high priest. In Leviticus 16, and the whole chapter deals with him as the high priest coming on the Day of Atonement. But listen to verse 16. He shall make atonement for the holy place because of the impurities of the sons of Israel, because of their transgressions in regards to all their sins. And thus he shall do for the tent of meeting, which abides with them in the midst of their impurities. It's about the holiness of the place that was defiled by the people that surrounded them. They defiled the place. And therefore they had to bring offerings and cleansings. And your sons who were ministering with you, what were they essentially? Well, today we like to think of them as intercessors, as people who prayed, but really they brought sacrifice. They were slaughtering sheep after sheep after sheep after sheep after sheep after sheep. It is one sacrifice after another, after another. I don't want to say they were just butchering, but there were rivers of blood, hoping for atonement and cleansing. And ritual purity is so significant, and particularly when we look at chapter 19, it starts to talk about the red heifer sacrifice, and we see that ritual purity coming back. But God is dwelling amidst a people who are unclean, and therefore they defile his place. The father's household here refers to the Kohathites, of which Aaron and his sons are a part, and they too bore a part of that guilt. And then the whole tribe in verse 2, your brothers, the tribe of Levi, and they have to minister to the nation. It's kind of interesting to just reflect upon that for a second, because if that's true then, is it still true today? And the answer would be yes. We still have a high priest and we are called to minister. What are we called to do? To some degree, we bear the guilt of the nation. And we got to pray and make intercession for this nation. The priestly office, as described here in the Tanakh and the Torah, is not just authority and power and privilege, though there was some, but they as a nation were defiling it, and so as a people, they had to be responsible. Yes, there is privilege, there's no doubt about that. The priesthood came very significantly. In verse 7, we see that God himself gives the priesthood to Aaron. In verse 12, then he says, because I've given you the priesthood, I will also give you the first fruits offering. In verse 19, he then says, I will also give you the offerings of the holy gifts. And in verse 26, he then says, I've also given you the tithes. So it does come with a great blessing. There's no doubt about it. And if Israel lived faithfully, they would be blessed, both as a priest, but also as a nation. Yet what is it that they didn't get? The priest didn't get a piece of land. Remember when Moses and Joshua divided up the land? Where's the land of Levi? It's not there. Why not? Okay. Because the Lord is their inheritance. It's kind of scary on the one hand. The Lord is my inheritance. Okay, what does that mean, Lord? What do you mean you're my inheritance? Lord, you are there and I'm here. What does that mean? It means that he will look after them, he will protect them, he will guide them. But they in return bear the guilt of the nation. So if they step out of line, they're the first ones to be corrected as God corrects his children. The other thing they don't have is a choice of career. They can't say halfway through, Lord, this is a back-breaking job, this butchery. I think I'd rather be somebody else or something else. God has called them to minister on his behalf. Now, if you were lucky, I guess, and you had a good voice, you might be shifted off to the choir. Or if you were totally inadequate, you might become a doorkeeper, which I think would be a great job. But we can see that there is a limitation there. God has called them. And particularly the sons of Aaron have no choice in this. And so for the rest of their life, they are called. And so they didn't get land. They did get cities of refuge in which they could be. And so that is an allotment to them. But God says that he would be your portion, verse 20. And the Lord said to Aaron, you shall have no inheritance in the land, nor own any portion amongst them. I am your portion and your inheritance amongst the sons of Israel. It's a scary thing to think that through, though. Lord, where am I going to live? If you're a faithful priest, it would be a prayer concern. If you were an unfaithful priest, you would have had a nice little holiday cottage in Jericho, near the date farms, some nice honey, near the baths there from Sodom and Gomorrah, or the Dead Sea. Nice and warm. But if you were faithful, you would have said, Lord, direct my steps. Aaron and his sons had to be inspectors of diseases, inspectors of purification rites. They had to be butchers and slaughtering day by day. But God would be their inheritance. And it's the Lord that he then gives them. In verses 7 to 13, he basically talks about the gifts that he gives them. And I'll bypass that because, yes, God will bless them, but that's not the purpose of my message. But I want you to just focus with me for a second on the next bit in verses 14 to 19. Every devoted thing in Israel shall be yours. These are the things that are placed under a herem, under a ban. And so whatever is placed under that ban, whatever is wholly devoted to God, will become their property. Then he says, every issue of the womb, which is to be offered to the Lord, it shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man shall be surely redeemed. The firstborn of unclean animals shall be redeemed. So a donkey would have to be redeemed. And that money of redemption, the 5 shekels, according to the sanctuary shekel, would be theirs. In verse 19, all the offerings of the holy gifts which the sons of Israel offer to the Lord, I have given to you and to your sons and to your daughters as a perpetual allotment. It is an everlasting covenant of salt before the Lord to you and your descendants to you. It's a covenant of salt, and that phrase is rather unique. It's found 3 times in Scripture. We see those kind of referencing. It's found in the book of Leviticus. In Leviticus chapter 2, verse 13, where it says that you shall season all your grain offerings with salt. You shall not leave the salt of the covenant of your God to be missing from your grain offerings. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. And it's indicating a perpetual priesthood. It's offering a perpetual sacrifice. And whatever is to be offered has to have salt. Here in this passage, the holy contributions is to be theirs. It's a perpetual offering to them. It's a covenant of salt. It's one more time, and that's found in the book of 2 Chronicles 13:5, which says, ought you not to know that the Lord your God gave the kingship over Israel forever to David and his sons by a covenant of salt. The phrase, the covenant of salt, or the salt covenant of your God, indicates a perpetual aspect. Salt was there to preserve. So in ancient times, when you ate food together, you would have had bread and wine and some salt to dip your bread in. Later on, this would become mixed as a condiment. So when Abraham and Melchizedek had bread and wine, they would have had salt. Or when Jacob and Laban had their meal, it would have been with salt. In the Jewish Encyclopedia, it says it is still retained in an Arabic phrase, there is salt between us, indicating a declaration of friendship with an obligation. You will do this for me and I will do this for you. The covenant of salt was enacted by people when they sat together and they would share their salt. And if there was an agreement between them, they would exchange salt from one pouch to the other, from your pouch to my pouch. And you could never take the same amount and the same grains back. And so there would be a perpetual aspect that cannot be revoked and removed and changed. And that's that whole connection to the Davidic covenant. It is a permanent, it's an unconditional covenant that God makes. And so it cannot be changed. The covenant itself is found in 2 Samuel in chapter 7 and 1 Chronicles 17. And the summary is found in 2 Chronicles 6:16. It's an everlasting covenant. And so we have, with a covenant of salt, Jewish priesthood in the line of Levi, and we have a kingship, a Jewish kingship in the line of David. And so God will always have Jewish priests, Levitical priests, even into the millennial kingdom. And we'll find that in the book of Ezekiel. But now that we're in the new covenant, Gentiles are not excluded. Isaiah 56 verses 1 to 6 clearly indicate even the eunuch, who would have been totally excluded, even the stranger or the foreigner is to be included. And so during the millennial kingdom, we will stand together and worship in Jerusalem. We'll still have a Jewish king. His name is Yeshua. In Revelation 17 and 19, he's described as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So he is clearly the one who's ultimately in connection here. Now, Yeshua is not from the tribe of Levi, but he does have a priesthood. That's the Melchizedekian priesthood. And we've talked about that in our newsletter, in our studies. And so I hope all of you will remember that because you read it, right? If you're not getting our newsletter, send us an email. We'll get you on, and you can read some of the old ones too. But his priesthood is clearly there. It's in the book of Hebrews in chapter 7, and it's quite a few times mentioned after that as well. But he is the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Now, perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, for on the basis of it, the people received the law. What further need was there for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek, and not to be designated according to the other order, the order of Aaron? For when the priesthood is changed of necessity, there was taken also a change of law. When Yeshua came, he changed the law, and Jew and Gentile can come together and worship him. That's pretty significant. It's no longer just Aaron and his sons, but all of us who can come out and join him in worship. That's pretty exciting. The priesthood of Melchizedek is a much older priesthood. It's found back in the book of Genesis, when Abraham met Melchizedek in Genesis 14. And it's in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 110, verse 4, where God suddenly declares, seemingly out of the blue, you are a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. And so a new one and a new order would come, and with that a change of law. And so we're no longer bound just by the Levitical priest, though they have a covenant of salt. The faithful ones will be included, but those that were unfaithful, they will be removed. And we have a new order, the order of Melchizedek. So what about you and me then? Do we fit in that? And how? Well, here are 4 passages just on the top of my head, though we could go to many more. And each of these will indicate some of our calling. In 1 Peter 2:5, come and like living stones, build yourself together in the spiritual house. You and I are built together, Jew and Gentile, male and female, young and old. We are bound together by the master builder himself, Yeshua. And we are consecrated to be holy to him, dedicated. As a priesthood, we offer up sacrifices. I see that none of you came prepared with a goat. I know I'm from Levi, but I don't think I would like it. But what is it that we offer? Spiritual sacrifices. That's what we're required to do. We are needing to bring a spiritual sacrifice. In 1 Peter 2, verse 9, he addresses mainly the Jewish believers, saying, you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood. But for all believers, that is in Revelation chapter 1 and chapter 5, where all of us are believers and we are all called to be a kingdom of priests. And all of us join together in his priesthood and in his kingdom. In Hebrews chapter 3, therefore, holy brothers and sisters, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider Yeshua the apostle and high priest of our confession. He was faithful to him who appointed him, as Moses was also in his house. But Messiah is over the house. And so we stand together with Moses, honoring Messiah, Yeshua. And so what is it that we need to do? I appeal to you, brothers, Romans chapter 12, isn't it? I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, I beg of you, in view of all of the mercies of God, of all that he has done for us, what is it that we need to do? We need to give our lives, our bodies as a living sacrifice, wholly devoted, consecrated, well-pleasing to God. which is your reasonable service. It's not even a great service, it's just reasonable. That's it. So let's do that. It's something that we need to do. That is the calling that we have. Let me come back to our passage though, in the book of Numbers. Remember in Numbers 18, we read the verse that God was their inheritance, verse 20. You shall have no inheritance in the land. That's the same for us, isn't it? Because we've been promised a better place. Where is it? Well, it's up there somewhere. Yeshua is building it. I'm looking forward to it. You and I will dwell in it together. And so we have no place at this point. But what is it that we need to do? We need to come together and confess him, who's our high priest. Come back to me to verse 1 though. In verse 1, the calling to them was to bear the guilt in connection with the sanctuary. But that's not quite for us, is it? We don't have the sanctuary, but we are the sanctuary. And just as the nation as a whole defiled the sanctuary, so too we as a body are sometimes defiled by the world. What is it that we need to do? We need to bear the guilt. That is, do the same thing that they were called to do. Make atonement, make intercession. And that's what we need to do too. 1 Timothy 2, verses 1 and 2. I urge you, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people, including kings and all those in authority, that we may live peacefully and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness, because they affect us and we should be affecting them in reverse. And this is not just a New Testament thought, it's also found in the book of Jeremiah 29:7. Therefore seek the peace and prosperity of the place. And Jeremiah is talking about the place where they were being sent, not the place where they were, but the place where they're being sent. And he's saying, even there, seek its prosperity, seek its blessing. And sadly, Israel did not do that. Israel chose to remain aloof and murmur. I don't know about you, but we tend to do the same, isn't it? But what is it that we're called to do? Pray for that place. Pray for this place. Pray for all God's people and for all authority that is over us. In Psalm 122, verse 6, what does it say? Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Because ultimately that's where all authority will come from and go to. The name Jerusalem, as you well know, includes that word shalom or Salem in the original. And it means peace, wholeness, completeness. We don't just pray for their peace, but we pray for the peace here in Sydney and in this congregation and for this state and this nation. Friends, in light of verse 1 of chapter 18, I think there's a calling for us to pray, isn't it? Well, Sila, that's all I had to say. I'm going to ask the worship team to come back and sing our concluding song. And after that, what we'll do is we'll take the Kiddush. We'll normally do it before, but today, because of various reasons, we're going to do it afterwards. And then we will partake together downstairs. Can we do that? So we're going to ask them to sing first, and then we'll sing with it. Quietly. Now, normally we do this at the beginning of our meetings, but tonight, obviously, it's a little bit different. And once we go downstairs, you will all join us. So, in the meantime, I hope you'll be able to say it with us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei uri hagav. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of our life. Amen.
I'm trying to keep them above. Yes, we don't have a seed factory after this. Please, can you say this with us? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, motzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Amen.
Well, we will slice it up downstairs for you to eat. And so it'll be much nicer, I'm sure. In the final segment, what I'll do is I'll say the Aaronic benediction. Ezra normally does this, but Ezra is still unwell, so do pray for Ezra. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'ir Adonai panav alecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace through Messiah Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. Amen.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for everybody that has listened to us live. I trust that you've enjoyed it. Looking forward to see you with us in a fortnight's time. May God bless you this entire week, and looking forward to see you in a fortnight's time, face to face. Thank you, sweet.
Well, friends, Shabbat Shalom. Until next time, we're going to close the live feed. For those of you who are here, join us downstairs for a little onak, for a little refreshment, and then we're going to close up. So, friends, till next time, Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.